Well, as world reactions continue to pour in following the ICC announcement, here to speak with us about the legal implications and the legitimacy, or lack thereof, of the court itself is Professor Eugene Kontorovich, Director of the International Law Department at the Kohelet Policy Forum. Professor Kontorovich, pleasure to have you on. I want to ask you to start, what are your initial reactions to this ICC arrest warrant scandal? What is the problem with ICC issuing these warrants, and is there really any truth to what they're accusing Israel of?
It's a court with no jurisdiction, investigating crimes in a state that doesn't exist, crimes that never happened. People have compared it to the Dreyfus trial, but it's much worse. In the affair of Dreyfus, there was in fact spying for the Germans, but it wasn't done by Dreyfus. In this case, the crime they're accusing Israel of, starvation, simply hasn't happened at all.
Do member states of the ICC have the option of rejecting this move by the court? I mean, what are the consequences of states such as Hungary flat out rejecting such measures? Can other nations even be persuaded to do as Hungary is doing?
Yeah, one thing the ICC is really short of is consequences, except perhaps for very vulnerable states like Israel. Even those heads of state who they have indicted have not really faced any consequences. And I think countries are free to act based on what they see as just and sound, given that the ICC has acted entirely outside of its jurisdiction, as many countries have previously said.
Now, let's talk about the worst case scenario. Practically speaking, what problems do these warrants bring for the state of Israel? I know you just mentioned that there aren't a lot of consequences. What could the consequences be, and what precedent is being set here by the ICC investigating a non-member state democratic country?
So clearly, this case is unprecedented in so many ways, and they're doing a lot of legal firsts to get their case against Israel. But it's not so much about the warrants themselves. Everybody knows that Netanyahu is not going to stand trial in The Hague any more than Mohammed Deif, who's dead. The point is to be another talking point in a diplomatic war against Israel, to justify boycotts against Israel and create an increasingly diplomatically hostile climate. Whether that succeeds or not is really going to depend on how countries react, and in particular how the United States and Israel react. It does not create a reality. It seeks to create a reality. At the same time, the precedent now is that non-member states like the United States can have their officials investigated. Maybe the ICC is going to decide that the Islamic State in the Levant, ISIS, is a state, and investigate President Obama for his war against ISIS, where even in the Battle of Mosul, 10,000 civilians were killed trying to get out 5,000 ISIS terrorists.
Now, is there any legal recourse or any recourse at all? I mean, what happens for these states that don't abide by the ICC? Are they kicked out? Is there a way to peacefully dissolve the ICC? Is that a discussion being had now? What can be done to push back?
So I think a very important thing to push back is having countries quit the ICC. Membership is the ICC's lifeblood. And already countries have previously started quitting the court due to other reasons. The Philippines has quit. There have been a lot of threats of quitting in Africa. If countries like Hungary, like Argentina, that see this as unjustified, take it to the next level and actually leave the court, I think that would fundamentally shake the court. Two prime ministers of Australia have already called, former prime ministers, have already called on their country to quit. And I think after that country's elections in May, that may indeed happen. I think we might even see Canada, after their elections, considering quitting the ICC. And all of that would shake the ICC to the core. I think countries need to realize this is not the ICC they signed up for. It had great promise, and it has given the opposite.
Now, we are almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask you quickly, is there a place in the international community for international law? Because just as a result of this war, we've seen the ICJ been weaponized, the lawfare being used against the Jewish state. Now we see the ICC. Is there a place for this that's actually appropriate, that's actually helpful? Because what we've seen so far, not so much.
So there's a difference between international law and international institutions. There's definitely a place for international law. That's why Israel abides by it and takes care to abide by. It takes care not to target civilians and takes care to do other things required by international law. But there's a difference between law and the institutions, created to enforce it or that purport to speak in its name. Those are really no better than their memberships and their staffs, and the ICC is an unaccountable, rogue institution.
All right, well, we are unfortunately out of time, but thank you, Professor Kontorovich, for your insight today.
Take care, Emily.